Go where your best prayers take you, unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. Breathe deeply of the glad air and live one day at a time. Know that you are precious and learn to trust. Amen. Isn't that a lovely hymn? So the day dawned for me. It's one of our new ones, and we're continuing to learn it, but we will sing it again. What great lyrics, what great theology. Hope you all are having a great summer and enjoying your summer. I started the beginning of summer saying that to you, to take some time, break your patterns, shake things up a little bit, slow down, have an adventure. Skip church if you need to connect with your friends and family. What are y'all doing here this morning? In other words, really take care of yourself. Summer's a great time to do that. It's not the only season to do that. But we don't think of it enough, I think. And I had one of those opportunities just a little over a week ago to reconnect with some friends and extended family. My wife threw a party. Well, it's not exactly a party. Those of you who are kind of around our age probably know it's an old-fashioned thing. I guess it's old-fashioned, called a sip and see. It's where the proud grandmother gets to show off her new granddaughter. So that's what we did. And as Al Bettinger says, I was thinking, oh, voila, I get a yard pass. I said, I'll go to the golf course. She said, oh, no, it's co-ed. I said, oh, okay, well, whatever. I thought I was out of there. No, it didn't happen. But it turned out to be marvelous. Because truly, one of my favorite things, that's not true. My favorite things is to have people into my home. And I like going into other people's homes. There is something magic about it. And I would have people over all the time because I'm extremely extroverted. That's probably not a great thing. But I know at this sip and see where, it's kind of for ladies and not much for men, what ultimately happened is what always happens. When friends get together in a house, the conversation just gets deeper. People start connecting. I had more fun watching people connect and listening to stories and watching people catch up with each other. It's just something very powerful about it. We focus on each other more when we're in each other's homes. There's a different level of conversation. There's nothing wrong with going out. I go out to eat all the time. But there is a whole other level of something that transpires. We get caught up in each other a bit in a really good way. We slow down a little bit with each other in a really good way. It is very therapeutic. And younger people who have been raised on going out to eat are catching on. I don't know if you've noticed, I've really noticed how many younger people are writing books about this very thing. Eating at home, cooking with their family, having people into their home rather than going out. There's kind of this trend back to that. And a lot of research being done about it. Well, we know what the research says. It's not to put down a new discovery, but we know what it means, don't we? When we dine with each other or eat with your family, there's some deeper sense of belonging that's created. It creates a community, particularly people who are not related to each other. There's great evidence that actually, if you can get people who are struggling into a home setting, something more equal happens between them. We're not surprised by that, are we? Our perspective changes as we listen and talk and share. I think we find common ground. I think what we do is rediscover that we are actually way more alike one another than different. And it takes a lot sometimes for us to get there. After all, it's not an absent point, is it, that in many societies, doing this simple thing, eating together in one's home, is considered sacred. Sacred. It is holy. It is considered a holy event, like it was for Jesus in Jesus' day. And if you travel to Palestine or Israel today, you will find the same in that old world culture, that if you're brought into someone's home for a meal, you're not a guest. It's deeper. You become family. And see, that's where the sacredness is. We get this deep sense of belonging to each other. And that's exactly our gospel story today. Mary and Martha, the sisters, good friends of Jesus, simply have him over for dinner. Don't make it more than it is. That is all that's happening. He comes to dinner. They're good friends. In fact, they're the significant relationship referred to on many occasions in the gospel, that he is friends with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. As the meal progresses, Mary becomes so comfortable being with Jesus that she forgets she's a host. She becomes like a guest to her sister, Martha, who's doing all the work. And Martha is obviously not too happy about it. We get that. That happens. But thinking about the story, can you imagine having Jesus at your dinner table? Well, you can. We all can. Because, see, that's part of the message today. The story is asking us a question. Do we take Jesus home with us the way that Mary and Martha do? Do we take him home? Do we take him home with us? And when we do, what happens? Fred Craddock, the brilliant preacher and minister who wrote so much, preached so much, helped so many people learn to preach, know how to preach, was a young Methodist minister in West Tennessee and had a small church there in a West Tennessee town. It was an active, busy place. And he said he remembered this one little girl so distinctly. Her name was Cynthia. She was this gorgeous child. She was about 7. She never saw the parents, but the little girl was always in Sunday school. And that went on for a long time when he first went to the church. And one day he was trying to figure out where'd she come from? She just kind of arrives. So he went out to the front of the church and they had a circular drive. He said they probably had the circular drive for the parents who didn't stay for church, but anyway, dropped their kids off. Anyway, so he went out and sure enough, the parents, really nice people, drove up. They actually got out of the car, kissed their daughter. She went in church, they got in their car, went away. So he bothered after Sunday school to go back, look, sure enough, the parents come back, pick her back up, go back home. He thought that was interesting. He knew the parents. They were in that way that we speak in the South, that up-and-coming young couple from the North who'd been assigned to the factory in town, and he was the president and moving up the chain of command. And he said, everybody knew it. They were a lovely young couple. They had a party every Saturday night. Biggest party in town every Saturday night. They had a ton of people in their home. They had drink, food, great parties, great fun, music, but they never went to church. On Sunday, they brought their daughter. He said it didn't bother him. He and his wife had been to their house for some parties. He said it was great. They were great fun. He didn't think much about this, just what they did, until one Sunday they showed up for church. And he looked up and there they are sitting with their child. They didn't pick her up from Sunday school. They actually parked their car and came inside. And then when he greeted them when they were leaving, they said, "Can we see you after church?" And he said, "Well, yeah." He said, "It's great to have you." He said, "No, we really need to talk." So he's thinking, boy, I wonder what's going on. So he said, well, let me get things. And they said, well, Cynthia can play out on the playground with some of the kids, and if we could go to your study. So they went down to his study. And they said, actually, it's kind of simple. We want to start really belonging. We want to give our lives to Jesus. And he said, you do? Okay, that's great. That's great. Don't get me wrong, but can you tell me kind of what brought this on? What happened? And so the parents told him the story. They said, we do these great parties on Saturday night, and you've been to some of them. Fabulous. We have more fun doing it. It's really our life. That's what we do. We do this great party on Saturday night. We have people in every Saturday night. And, we did this about a week ago again. And, a lot of times we stay up a little late and we play the music a little loud. We'll drink a little too much. Everybody's there. And then they go home. And he said, about 3/4 of the way through the evening, we looked up and Cynthia, we had awakened her and she came down the stairs. And she was standing on the landing. And they said it kind of stopped the party. And Cynthia had a big grin. She loved being down there with the adults. And she looked and she said, food. She said, can I say the blessing? And she did, right there. God is great. God is good. Let us thank him for our food. Amen. And she said, good night. I'm going to go back to bed. He said in about 5 minutes, everybody went home. He said, we're cleaning up and we're thinking about it. And he said, my wife and I weren't talking. We were in our heads. And he said, we looked at each other and we were struck by something. He said, we didn't even need to say it. He said, so we're here this morning. Jesus talked all the time. I have this refrain in my brain from childhood to adulthood. Jesus talked over and over, wait and watch. Wait and watch. And I have to tell you, for a long time I wondered what it meant. Then I kind of took it, I didn't like it much because it's almost like, for people trying to live their faith, it's almost a little bit of a put down. What do you mean wait and watch? I'm seeing this, I'm here, I'm connected. What do you mean wait and watch? And as I've gotten older, I've thought a lot about it and working with you and all of us doing spiritual work together, it finally hit me that I was interpreting it, I had the wrong interpretation. I don't think he was saying wait and watch so that we'll see God when he comes into your life. I don't think that's what he meant. He understood that God is in our lives all the time. I think what he meant was very simple. Wait and watch your life. Wait and watch your life, not someone else's. And then we know what he meant. See God. See God at work. Tell you a wonderful story I ran across. It's just too good to tell because it's one of our cherished World War II folks. One of our great generation. His name's Ray Hamley. He was a young 21-year-old during the war. He's English. Grew up in a small village. He was trained as a pilot, and he was flying B-25 Liberators over Germany late in the war, flying out of London. Did his 25 missions. Most of the people in his air wing died. He survived. At the end of the war, he kind of went back to his life and had a life to go back to, which was lovely. Married his childhood sweetheart and became a teacher and then became a principal of a private school. And that was his career. And he remembered vividly the last bombing mission he ran. The war was pretty desperate. England had been bombed repeatedly by the Germans, and now the English and the Allies were having to do the same. They were having to break up all the infrastructure. So he said, my bombing mission was to bomb a railroad, and he said, we did, and we blew it up. And he said, a munitions plant, and we did. And he said, I was always afraid a little bit that my bombs just kind of walked up the street more than they were supposed to. But he said, I didn't know, and we flew home and made it. And then a few years ago, someone saw in the paper an article about Germany and said, you know, Ray, did you see this article about you ran bombing missions over Germany? He said, yeah. He said, well, I'll bring it to you. And it was an article he had missed, and it was about a church that had spent all these years not rebuilding, and finally, 30, 40 years later, 50 years later, had gotten around to rebuilding St. Mary's Catholic Church because it had been bombed. Specific day, specific time. He went upstairs in his footlocker and pulled out his pilot's log. It was his date, his time, his bombs. He had blown up the church. And in the article it talked about there was an older couple whose kids and grandkids were still in the parish, and the older couple lived next door to the church, and the bombs had killed them, and they were caretakers for the property. And he said something struck him, and it just wouldn't leave him. And he started worrying about it. I mean, really worrying about it. And his wife said, sweetheart, you're a great man. You go to church. He's an Anglican. He's active in his community. Said, it was war. Just kind of let it go. It's okay. It's going to be all right. That was war. They'll understand. Everybody understands. Things happen. But he couldn't let that go. He said, I can't. And so he sat down and he wrote a letter to the parish apologizing for bombing the church and killing those people. And he said, yes, it was in the context of war, and he said, we did a lot of harsh things, but he said, I am very deeply sorry for that. About 2 weeks later, he got back something totally unexpected. It was a letter from the congregation, from the priest, and it was short. It was just a little short note, and it said, Mr. Ray, said simply this: we forgive you. It was signed by 600 parishioners and their children. And at the end of the signatures it said, "Would you please bring your family and come to the rededication of our church?" You see, I think if we will wait long enough, watch long enough, we will find God moving in our lives. And often at times that we need God most. God is working. Don't ever miss that. That's the gospel. I think we spend a lot of time trying to worry about making God appear. That's not the deal, folks. The gospel said God is always with you. God is there. Maybe we, though, at times need to be struck by that thought. Struck deeply that, yes, God is right here, right now. I'm in the presence of this. And you know, when we're in the presence of God, we know that something we need, something good that someone needs, something to help us move through something, get beyond something, it is going to come. That's the way it works. I hope that today, as we baptize another baby, we've had lots of baby baptisms, and baptize Elizabeth Caldwell, that we will be cognizant of that we help her parents and grandparents and godparents and extended family know that God is with her now and always. She need do nothing. But I also hope we do also help her wait and watch with us. Because, you know, like Mary and Martha in this wonderful story, we may discover what they found. That, you know, it is actually pretty easy to take Jesus home with you. It really is. Because you see, he has always been there. Amen.